Thank you for joining us on PALS TV today. Happy Cinco de Mayo, everyone. We have another fantastic lineup planned for you. Some education, art programs, and physical activity going on throughout the day. Since it's Cinco de Mayo and we're going to be doing some history in our segments, I figured I'd start our day out with some different history and things that happened on this day. So on May 5th, 1260, Kublai Kai, who was the grandson of Genghis Khan, became the ruler of the Mongol Empire. In 1965, so a little bit closer to our time frame here, and really hit close to home with the United States, our first troops on May 5th, 1965, went into Vietnam and were on the ground. So I'm personally a sports guy. So 1905 on this day, Cy Young pitched the first perfect game in baseball. And a little bit of Steubenville history. So that's where we're going to be starting our day out with our tours and with Amanda. So some famous people from Steubenville. Most of you may have heard of Dean Martin, which was a member of the Rat Pack with Sammy Davis and Frank Sinatra. And then you have Edwin Stanton. That's a very popular person if you're into history. He served as the Secretary of War under Abraham Lincoln and was very crucial after his assassination in getting the country back in order. So there's a couple others. John Buccigross, who does ESPN, again, sports guy, so I get to see him quite a bit. And then Jimmy the Greek, who was the first person to create sports books. So anyhow, yesterday we started our tour over in the U.S. Air Force Museum, going through some of the history in flight. Again, with history, there's a lot of it that comes from Ohio. The Wright brothers had their first flight over near Dayton, Ohio, and there's now an Air Force base over there, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which a couple of our programs have attended in the past and really enjoyed. And we love our history, and especially when it comes to our military and everything they've sacrificed for us and all that they do to put their own lives on the line to make sure that we are free and are able to do these fantastic things like PALS TV. So thank you again for joining us today. And we're going to be joining Amanda right now over in Steubenville, Ohio, for our Explore, Travel, and Leisure segment.
Thanks, Aaron. Hi, everyone. Just a little quickie extra fact for Steubenville. I just read it today. Today is the day that the bridge that connects Steubenville to Weirton opened, our Veterans Memorial Bridge. It opened today in 1990. So just a little extra thing there that I thought was pretty cool. All right, so we are going to keep going in our Air Force Museum today. We are in World War II right now. That's where we're currently checking out all the different planes from. So let me go ahead and share my screen with you guys and we can get moving. Okay, let me share the screen now. All right, can everyone see my screen? If you can see it, give me a big thumbs up. All right, sounds good. All right, so just get you guys big so I can see everyone. And there's our emblem. We are still at the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force. So let's zoom out. All right, so this is the new section that we're in. I can close that out, give us a little bit of a better view. So where we left off yesterday with the Savresky P-35, and we are going to find out a little bit about this guy right here. This mannequin depicts some of the makeshift characteristics of the USAAF personal fighting on the ground. He is wearing a mismatched uniform that is a combination of a khaki service shirt, and the more durable blue denim work pants. Others went into combat wearing work or flying coverings or their khaki service uniforms. Weapons used by the USAAF personnel on the ground varied considerably. This serviceman is equipped with a bolt-action Philippine Army issue M1917 Enfield rifle. Other weapons used by the USAAF on the grounds included World War I Marlin and Lewis machine guns, 50 caliber aircraft machine guns on makeshift supports, and US Army issue Springfield bolt action rifles. So I'll zoom out, we can get a better picture of him. So you see we got the khaki top, the denim pants, he's got a grenade, he's got his belt with all his things he would need. Right there is his rifle. Zoom out a little bit. So the uniforms back then were a little bit of a mismatch of everything. All right, let's take a spin around, see what else we see here. Guadalcanal, the battle there. You got the New Guinea blockade and Sonoma. Zoom in a little bit on some of these pictures. Papua New Guinea. There's just a battle we fought there. Okay, let's keep going. All right, we got some more planes floating around here. We have a Douglas B-18 Bolo plane, a Lotte L-1A Vigilant, smaller plane. So you see the crosses up right here. What does that cross mean? What was that plane probably used for? Anyone have any ideas? It was more than likely used for medical purposes to take medical supplies to and from. That's what the Red Cross would have meant. So we got over here, a few more battles. Battle of Southern Philippines. See if we can see any more information. Right here, we have a bomb that they would have used and dropped. All right, so let's keep going. We have a leather pilot's jacket and a bush and leather jacket. Right here, we have a Bell P-63 King Cobra plane and a Curtiss P-40E Warhawk. And you can see they painted on the front to make it scary looking and more intimidating. That's pretty nifty. See if I can get a little bit more information on it when we get closer. Our Douglas Bolo. Ooh, there's a big guy. So if you look right here, it looks like they're working on it right there. They have the engine covered up right here, and he's obviously telling them to do something or another. See if we can zoom in. So this right here is an engine, the R2600 series. Engine was introduced in 1939, initially rated at 1,500 horsepower. With improvements, it later reached a rating of 1,800 horsepower. In military use, it was used on Army Air Force's A-20s, A-24s, and B-25s, as well as some Navy torpedo and patrol bombers. It also gained fame powering the well-known Boeing Model 314 Clipper, which offered transoceanic passenger service beginning in 1939. So that engine would have been in this plane, helping folks get to and from where they needed to be. Here we have a Ryan PT-22 recruit plane and a Bell P-63E King Cobra. That kind of looks a little bit more similar to the jets we have today. Okay, let's keep scooting. Let's see what else we can find out here. What we got here? So we have the Doolittle Tokyo Raiders. You guys might have heard a little bit about this from if you've watched Pearl Harbor or anything of that sort. Let me see. Raiders toast the Doolittle Raiders goblets, which are right here. These 80 silver goblets commemorate the 80 men who flew the Doolittle raid against Japan in April 1942. Over the years, these goblets have taken a highly symbolic place in history of military aviation. In December 1946, General James Jimmy Doolittle and his fellow raiders gathered to celebrate his birthday, and that event turned into an annual reunion. In 1959, the city of Tucson, Arizona, presented the Doolittle Raiders with this set of silver goblets, each bearing the name of one of the 80 men who flew on the mission. During halftime at the U.S. Air Force Academy football game, Doolittle turned them over to the superintendent of the academy for safekeeping. The Air Force Academy displayed these goblets between Raider reunions. In 1973, Richard E. Dick Cole, Doolittle's co-pilot during the 1942 raid, built this portable display case to transport them. At every reunion, the surviving Raiders meet privately to conduct their solemn goblet ceremony. After toasting the Raiders who died since their last meeting, they turn the deceased men's goblets upside down. Each goblet has the Raiders' name engraved twice, so it can be read if the goblet is right side up or upside down. When there are only 2 Raiders left, these 2 men will drink one final toast to their departed comrades. In 2005, the surviving Doolittle Raiders decided to make the National Museum of the United States Air Force the permanent home for these historic goblets. So we will zoom in a little bit more here. Let's see if we go up. And you can see that a lot of the cups are turned over. We have one that's still up that I can see. There might be some in here, but I'm not quite sure. See if we can see the name on, nope, it won't let me zoom in to see the name on the cup. So let's find out a little bit more about the Doolittle raid. In the spring of 1942, America's morale slumped from numerous Japanese successes, and the country desperately needed a victory. Captain Francis S. Lowe, a U.S. Navy submarine, suggested an attack against the heart of Japan using U.S. Army Air Force's medium bombers flown from a U.S. Navy aircraft carrier. The difficult task of training for and leading the raid went to Lieutenant Colonel Jimmy Doolittle, a brilliant aviator and compelling leader. The top secret plan called for B-25s to take off about 450 miles from Japan. Bombs selected targets at such locations such as Yokohama and Tokyo, then fly another 1,600 miles to a friendly airfield in mainland China. The operation was risky. Medium bombers had never been flown from a carrier, and sailing so far into enemy territory endangered the U.S. Navy task force. At dawn on April 18, 1942, the task force, commanded by Admiral William Bull Halsey, was steaming west through rough Pacific seas, about 650 miles away from Japan. On the deck of the USS Hornet sat 16 B-25s. Unfortunately, the task force encountered an enemy patrol boat, and no one knew it had radioed a warning to Japan before being sunk. Colonel Doolittle and Admiral Halsey discussed their difficult choice to cancel the raid or launch earlier than planned and risk running out of fuel. Doolittle chose to attack. Let me scoot down a little bit here. And all 16 aircraft took to the air. Upon reaching the Japanese homeland, the raiders dropped their bombs on all storage facilities, factory areas, and military installations, and then headed across the East China Sea. As their fuel gauges dropped, the raiders knew they could not reach their designated airfields. One by one, they ditched at sea bailed out or crash landed in China. One crew diverted to the Soviet Union. Fortunately, with the help of the Chinese people, most of the Doolittle raiders safely reached friendly forces. Japanese forces later executed as many as 250,000 Chinese citizens in retaliation for this assistance. When authorities released news of the attack, American morale zoomed from the depths to which it plunged, following Japan's many early victories. Although the brilliant strike caused relatively little physical damage, it stunned the Japanese population. Their embarrassed leaders had promised the mainland would never be attacked. The Japanese transferred 4 fighter groups from the front lines to defend mainland China. To prevent future American attacks on the homeland, Admiral Yamamoto ordered the disastrous attack on Midway Island, which became the turning point in the war in the Pacific. So you can see right here, here's a picture of the Doolittle Tokyo Raiders. And there's them taking off. This is USA Air Force personnel handing 50 caliber ammunition into ammo trays prior to takeoff. Over here, we have crew number 1, B-25 serial number 40-2344, left to right, Lieutenant Henry A. Potter, Lieutenant Colonel James H. Doolittle, Staff Sergeant Fred A. Bramer, Lieutenant Richard E. Cole, and Staff Sergeant Paul J. Leonard. So those were some of the members of the Doolittle raids. Zoom over a little bit more. See some more pictures. Unfortunately, I can't read up here to see who the other crew members were. Won't let me zoom in any farther, but if you see, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 different crews that made up the Doolittle raid. So there was 5 to 6 members, I see some with 6, in each crew. You see here some more of the Doolittle Raiders. And up here we see a newspaper from Japan at that time. If you guys ever get a chance, or if you haven't already, I highly recommend, granted it's fictionalized, but there is some information on there that you watch the movie Pearl Harbor. It is a very good movie, and I really enjoy that movie. So I really enjoy getting to see this right here. So let's keep on going. Not quite sure where I'm at right now. I've gotten lost. There we go. All right, so we're back on. Sure. I'm lost in the museum, my favorite thing. All right, there's that VT BT-113B Valiant and a Beech AT-10 Wichita, a Leicester Kaufman TG-4A, and there's our North American B-25 bombers. So that is what that Doolittle gang, that's what they would have been flying right there. All right, let's head over. Oh, we got the butts of some planes. There's our Wichita again. And a Stearman PT-13D Cadet. Legacy of Equality. This section here is going to be our Tuskegee Airmen. Tuskegee, I'm sorry. The Tuskegee Airmen proved themselves equal to white flyers and support troops, but black airmen remained segregated after the war. However, they had made it obvious to many leaders, President Harry S. Truman in particular, that segregation in the military was morally wrong, inefficient, and should be ended, stating that the highest standards of democracy were essential in the armed services. President Truman's Executive Order 9981 of July 26, 1948 directed that there shall be equality of treatment and opportunity for all persons in the armed services without regard to race, color, religion, or national origin. When the U.S. Air Force became a separate service in 1947, it benefited directly from the experience of the Tuskegee Airmen. The U.S. Air Force was the first service to erase the color line, thanks largely to the pioneering efforts and the courageous legacy of the Tuskegee Airmen. In April 2006, the U.S. Congress voted to award the Tuskegee Airmen a Congressional Gold Medal, the most prestigious award Congress can give to civilians. And right there is the Congressional Gold Medals. Excuse me. In April 2006, the U.S. Congress voted to award the Tuskegee Airmen a Congressional Gold Medal, the most prestigious award Congress can give to civilians. The award was presented to the surviving Tuskegee Airmen on March 29, 2007, at a ceremony in the rotunda of the U.S. Capitol, in recognition of their unique military record, which inspired revolutionary reform in the armed forces. The medal features 3 Tuskegee Airmen in profile: an officer, a mechanic, and a pilot. So I believe that's that right there. The eagle symbolizes flight, nobility, and the highest ideals of the nation. The years 1941, 1949 indicate the years that these airmen were assigned to segregated units. The reverse side depicts 3 types of airplanes flown by the airmen in World War II. The P-40, P-51, and B-25. The medals on display are bronze copies of the original gold medal, which remains at the Smithsonian Institution per public law. So they were where we were last week. Somehow we missed them though, or they might be in another building because we were just in the Museum of National History. So right here we have one of the Tuskegee Airmen. Let's see here. Copies above, has prisoner identification card. He was a POW. See if we can find a little bit more about him. Captured in Italy during the summer of 1944, Lieutenant, later Major, Lloyd Scotty Hathcock spent the rest of the war in a prison camp. After that, he stayed in the service and helped to desegregate the U.S. Air Force. You see right here, up here is his prisoner card. Here is a letter that he wrote to his girlfriend. Oh, actually, I believe it says mother. So this is possibly a letter from his mother to him. And there are his wings, his leather cap, and his dog tags. Over here is another one of the Tuskegee Airmen. It's a 2-war flight suit. Tuskegee Airman Lieutenant Haldane King, a B-25 pilot, wore this A-4 flight suit during World War II. His son, Captain Haldane King Jr., a KC-135 pilot, wore it during the Southeast Asia War. There's his jumpsuit, and unfortunately that kind of gets in the way, but you can see somewhat of a picture of what he would have looked like. And down here is his son. I can't read anything more there. And we're off. Oh my goodness. So here's a consolidated B-24D Liberator. You can see they've painted on there. We have a 24 and a skull with what maybe helicopter propellers there. And the name of the plane that I am not going to say. We're going to keep it PG on here. So the consolidated B-24D Liberator. The B-24 was employed in operations in every combat theater during World War II. Because of its great range, it was particularly suited for such missions as the famous raid from North America against the oil industry at Pelosi, Romania. On August 1st, 1943, this feature also made the airplane suitable for long overwater missions in the Pacific Theater. More than 1,800 Liberators were produced. The B-24D on display flew combat missions from North Africa in 1943-1944 with the 512 Bomb Squadron. It was flown to the museum in May 1959 It is the same type of airplane as the Lady Be Good, the world famous B-24 that disappeared on a mission from North Africa in April 1943 and was found in the Libyan desert in May 1959. Technical notes, it has 10 50 caliber machine guns and 8,000 pounds of bombs. It's got a 4 Pratt & Whitney R1830 engine that has 1,200 horsepower each. Can reach a maximum speed of 303 miles an hour. It can fly 2,850 miles. It can go up to 28,000 feet in the air and weighs 56,000 pounds at max weight. So that is a big old plane right there for sure. And right here we have a Mach-E MC200 Seda. You can see it's got an interesting paint job. It looks like a leopard. Spin around, see what else we see. All right, let's keep going. We have some more pictures here. So on May 26, 1943, King George and Queen Elizabeth visited Memphis Belle Crew at Bassingbourn after they finished their tour. So that is them just checking things out. Over here we have a pilot, Bob Morgan, Jim Vernus, Captain Vince Evans, Chuck, something I can't see unfortunately. So he would have been our pilot, our co-pilot, bombardier, navigator, and waist gunner. Here is a picture of the uniform. And then we have our top turret operator, our radio operator, our ball turret operator, our another waist gunner, a tail gunner, and just a general gunner. I'm going to assume that he filled in wherever he was needed. And these are all members of the Halfo raid. See if we can find out a little bit about it. On July 12, 1942, 12 B-24s based in Egypt bombed the oil fields in Romania, making it the first USAAF strike on Europe. These B-24s came from the Halpro Detachment Halverson Project, which was en route to the China-Burma Indian Theater under the command of Colonel Harry Halverson. In the end, Halpro Detachment remained in the Mediterranean to form the 376 Bomb Group, the first USAAF heavy bomber group in that theater. So they were part of crippling the Nazi war machine. Let's see, what is strategic bombing, which is what they did. Strategic bombing is a strategy to destroy a country's ability or will to fight by attacking its homeland from the air. Air power advocates believed that strategic bombing could win wars at the start of World War II. However, the theory was unproven. In Europe, the USAAF conducted a daytime precision strategic bombing campaign targeting the enemy's economic resources, while the British Royal Air Force, RAF, carried out a nighttime area bombing campaign. Woo, girls, they like to paint girls on their planes. That's some artwork from the Memphis Belle. You can see right here, I can't zoom in real close, you can see right there. Okay, let's go over to our next part. Take a spin. There we go. We're going to learn a little bit more about the Memphis Belle, which I believe, zoom out. I think we'll see the Memphis Belle when we turn around. The U.S. Air Force selected the Memphis Belle and its crew to represent the strategic bombing effort on a widely publicized war bond and morale-boosting tour with more than 30 stops across the country. Acclaimed in newspapers and greeted as heroes by large crowds, the famed aircraft and crew became national celebrities and strengthened public resolve for the war effort. So Memphis Belle, flying fortresses. See if we can get a better picture of that plane when we turn around. Ooh, where are we at in here? Hello. So I believe if you look up, this gives us an idea. It's kind of distorted what it looked like up inside the plane itself. Pretty cool. Another plane here. Unfortunately, it's not going to tell me what it is because we are underneath its wing. Let's keep going, see what we can find. There's our Memphis Belle. I knew we'd find her. There she is. You can see there's a lady painted on it. Talked about. You see that is a big plane, and they were known as the Flying Fortresses. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 engines. Your pilot would be up here, and you would have gunners stationed inside as well. Took quite a few crew to run this. As we saw in the earlier, there was roughly 10 to 12 individuals in each one of these planes. Right here, we have an A-36 Mustang. Let's learn a little bit about this plane if we can get up to it enough. Also nicknamed the Apache or Invader, the A-36 dive bomber was the first U.S. Army Air Force version of the Mustang. Officially developed for Britain in 1940, the first A-36 flew in September 1942, and North American Aviation completed production of 500 A-36As in March 1943. Assigned to the 27th and 86th Bombardment Groups, the A-36 first saw action over the Mediterranean island of Pantelleria in June 1943. During the Italian campaign, the 36A pilots flew bomber escort and staffing missions, as well as ground support bombing attacks. The A-36s also served with the 311th Fighter Bomber Group in India. In 1944, bomb rack equipped P-51s and P-47s replaced the A-36A when experience showed that these high altitude fighters were more suitable for low level missions than the A-36As. The museum's A-36A was donated by Charles P. Doyle of Rosemont, Minnesota, and was restored by members of the Minnesota Air National Guard. Okay, so there's some more of that. Okay, so let's keep going. So we get some more. We have a CG-4A Hadrian. That definitely looks like an earlier plane. We have a B-26 Marauder that they've named Shootin' In. Hey, there's an elephant on this one. This is a P-47D Thunderbolt. The aircraft on display is a P-47D-40 serial number 45-97167 and was built at the Republic plant in Evansville, Indiana. In the late 1940s, it was transferred to the Peruvian Air Force. The aircraft later came to the museum in 1981. The museum's aircraft is painted as the P-47D-30 flown by Colonel Joseph Laughlin, commander of the 367th Fighter Group, 9th Air Force in early 1945. So there is that. Pretty neat. These almost look like stingers, like a yellow jacket or something. And right here, this is a P-38L Lightning, if I didn't say that already. And a C-47D Skytrain. That is a big guy right there. So let's keep going and see if we can find out a little bit more about it. Disney pins on wings. Walt Disney Productions created approximately 1,200 designs during World War II for both American and Allied military units. Designs were produced by the Disney Studios free of charge as a donation to the war effort and were also created for other organizations such as civil defense and war industries. Walt Disney understood the value of cartoon humor to unit morale and spirit de corps, serving as the Red Cross ambulance driver during World War I at the age of 16. Throughout his service in France, he embellished his ambulance and others in his unit with drawings and cartoons, much to the delight of all. Walt Disney Productions created their first military insignia in 1933 at the request of a Naval Reserve squadron stationed at Floyd Bennett Field in New York, with other random requests following over the next few years. During America's military mobilization in 1940 and 1941, however, hundreds of new military units were created, and the Disney studios were soon flooded with requests for insignia designs. The Disney studios were heavily committed to critical contract war work, creating public information and training films during the war years. In addition to this effort, time and resources were found to create the many hundreds of insignia designs. Throughout the war, the Disney insignia designs helped keep up the morale of Allied fighting forces, while Walt Disney Productions made many award-winning contributions to the war effort. None of these achievements proved more personal satisfaction and pride than the unit insignia designs. So here are some of the artists. They are working on the different designs. Up here is one of the designs. You actually see Mickey there as an Air Force worker. We have Donald Duck here. He's saying he wants his wings. He wants to be a pilot. There you go. There's some of the jackets with the different insignia. The insignia meant a lot to the men who were fighting. I had to do it. I owed it to them. And that is a quote from Walt Disney, who you can see. He's sitting there drawing out an insignia. That's pretty nifty. I never knew that. We got a Martin B-26 Marauder there. So let's head over to our next spot. The Winged Angels, U.S. Army Forces flight nurses in World War II. Before World War II, the U.S. military showed little interest in using aircraft and flight nurses to evacuate wounded soldiers to rare areas. The global war, however, forced the U.S. Army Air Forces to revolutionize military care throughout the development of air evacuation, later known as aeromedical evacuation and flight nurses. So these would have been some jackets that the flight nurses wore. We have a flight nurse here. I can't see her name, unfortunately. There's that. We have a bomb right here, a V2 with Mueller wagon. That is a big bomb. Let's keep going. We got some helicopters and let's see if I can find anything. So this is a Ju-880 Trop. This may be our last plane we're able to do today. The German Ju-88 was one of the most versatile airplanes of World War II. It operated in nearly every kind of combat role, including dive bomber, level bomber, night fighter, day interceptor, photographic reconnaissance aircraft, tank destroyer, and even as an unpiloted missile. The Ju-88 made its first flight on December 21st, 1936, and hundreds were still in use when the war ended in 1945. The airplane on display is a Ju-880D Trop, later designed Ju-88D3. So there is that plane. He is a big guy as well. All right, and I think that's where we're going to have to stop for today, guys. We still have quite a bit of World War II to get through, and we'll be moving to a different area of the museum once we're done with that. We should be able to finish up World War II tomorrow, though. So I'm going to turn it over to Aaron, and it was good hanging out with you guys again.
Thank you, Amanda, for another fantastic tour. Before we let Amanda go, does anyone have any questions over today's segment? I know personally, I didn't realize Walt Disney had that much involvement in the Air Force, so I found that very, very interesting. And so many different random facts just about our Air Force and how it was so crucial during World War II. And that's really when it certainly picked up as far as air, land, and sea, you know. So, all right. Well, thank you, Amanda, for that great tour, as always. We'll be joining Amanda again tomorrow morning to continue our tour of the United States Air Force Museum. So please join us again. And now we'll take a short break and get into more history on our Cinco de Mayo edition here of PALS TV, and head down to Gallia County and build off of what we learned last week and some of the Revolutionary War facts and how it really happened here close to home. So we'll see everyone in a short while. Come back and join us at 11 a.m.